The internet is flooded with videos of furious crowds filling the streets of China, chanting for change and rattling the regime to its core. They're furious about bank withdrawals suddenly frozen, about a housing market spiralling out of control, about promises of economic power that now ring hollow. Every day brings new images of unrest, feeding an overarching sense that China will not make it to 2026. The second largest economy on Earth stands at the edge of a calamity so vast it might drag down half the planet with it, and there seems to be no clear way out, or at least not for now. Let's see why. For 3 decades, China was the world's unstoppable workshop. Its low-cost manufacturing flooded global markets with cheap electronics, steel and apparel, powering a near-miraculous GDP growth that surpassed 9% year after year. People called it the Chinese economic miracle. That miracle now threatens to become a nightmare. Factories that once hummed with production are losing foreign clients to cheaper rivals in Vietnam and India. Leading technology firms from the US, under pressure from intensifying trade disputes, are relocating their supply chains. And as labour costs in China surge, the competitive advantage that made Beijing indispensable to the West shrinks daily. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. More frightening is the precarious bubble festering in China's real estate sector. For decades, as Beijing's state-run stock exchanges lacked the trust of ordinary citizens, and as bank interest rates lagged, property emerged as the main target for investment. Developers, nurtured by cheap credit, built towns in the desert, ghost cities with glittering malls and empty boulevards, and massive high-rises that no one would ever occupy. By some estimates, over 60 million residential units lie vacant, a figure that boggles the mind. China's entire property sector, from commercial towers in major cities to endless suburban developments, has grown so bloated that its downfall might surpass the US's subprime meltdown of 2008 in both scale and impact. At first, this frenzy was rational. Returns were sky high, and any new construction was snapped up by investors convinced prices would rise forever. The biggest developers pre-sold apartments to finance ongoing projects, then rushed to break ground on still more towers using the revenue from these unbuilt homes. As long as fresh buyers kept pouring in, the scheme churned out wealth. But the brutal truth remains that real estate cannot expand forever in a country whose population is shrinking and whose economy has slowed drastically. Now, the largest firms from Evergrande to Country Garden lurch from default to default, leaving construction half-finished and tens of thousands of families with nowhere to turn. It's a vicious cycle. With so many incomplete homes and so little trust left in the market, future buyers are scarce. Prices slip, banks resist further lending, and once mighty property titans hover on the brink of bankruptcy. Making matters worse is China's reversal of fortunes on the global stage. Donald Trump's trade war initially battered Beijing's confidence, slapping punitive tariffs on exports that had long fueled its rise. The conflict did not dissolve with Trump's departure. If anything, tensions have hardened, with new technology bans targeting Chinese microchips and telecom gear. As the US teams up with allies to counter China's push into advanced robotics, AI, and next-generation networks, Beijing finds itself under intensifying scrutiny and sanction. The decoupling has begun, pressing multinational corporations to look elsewhere for stable production. Apple has already shifted parts of its iPhone manufacturing to India. Electronic supply chains are drifting to Southeast Asia. The once rampant wave of foreign investment that China leveraged so brilliantly is now receding. Meanwhile, consumer confidence in the Chinese heartland is in tatters. Many who lost jobs or saw incomes crumble during the zero-COVID lockdowns found no government safety net waiting. While the US and Europe poured out subsidies or stimulus checks, Beijing offered little direct support to its population. People spent their personal reserves to survive, only to emerge from lockdown into an economy ravaged by supply chain chaos, a property implosion, and global distrust. Now they hoard what remains, unwilling to buy large items or make down payments on new apartments. Companies, left with unsold goods/production. Deflation sets in. Month after month, consumer prices slip downward, fueling the negative mindset that it might be smarter to wait for things to become even cheaper tomorrow. This phenomenon can freeze an economy, creating a downward spiral as everyone stops spending and invests only minimally. At the same time, local governments that thrived on land sales to big developers are now losing a pillar of revenue. Many municipalities borrowed heavily for grand infrastructure projects, roads, stadiums, airports, banking on endless real estate growth to foot the bill. But with big developers bankrupt or scaling back, no one's buying up huge tracts of new land. Tax income plummets. Payroll for local civil servants strains budgets. Some regions are rumoured to pay employees months late. The ripple effects from a housing collapse undermine every corner of the Chinese financial ecosystem. One shock leads to another. Banks run short of cash. Depositors rush to withdraw their savings, fueling the dreaded bank runs that go viral on social media. Scenes of crowds confronting riot police outside shuttered branches are horrifying the ruling Communist Party, which prizes stability above all else. Even if Beijing had the will to step in with a massive bailout, the question remains, can it outmuscle a meltdown of this magnitude? Its foreign currency reserves, once unthinkably large, are shrinking faster than officials admit. The central bank tries to keep interest rates low to spur borrowing, but people are either too fearful or too indebted to take out new loans. If the government prints money recklessly, the yuan might crash, triggering capital flight. And foreign investors, already wary, could withdraw further if Beijing imposes capital controls or tries to overshadow the crisis with ham-fisted propaganda. Another dread for the central government is the possibility of mass unemployment among the returning waves of migrant workers who had flocked to building sites or factory floors. If new projects aren't launched and foreign buyers keep reducing orders, these millions of labourers find themselves jobless in their home provinces, with meagre prospects. Beijing fears an explosion of social unrest if they join the rising tide of dissatisfaction. That's why glimpses of protest videos flooding the internet terrify Xi Jinping's administration. The country's social contract, built on rising prosperity and unwavering nationalism, starts to fracture when people have neither stable work nor the hope of profit from real estate or manufacturing. Some voices inside China cling to parallels with Japan's lost decades, claiming that, at worst, the country will stagnate like Tokyo did after its own real estate bubble burst in the early 1990s. But Japan's meltdown took place amid a still friendly global trade environment, and without the all-or-nothing political control that Beijing enforces. China, by contrast, faces intensifying geopolitical opposition, a looming demographic crash, and an iron-fisted single-party regime that tolerates no opposition. That environment could transform stagnation into something more chaotic and uncontrollable. In short, the pillars that kept China stable, booming exports, unstoppable construction, a docile population, and foreign capital, hungry for cheap labour, are crumbling. Even the population advantage vanishes as birth rates plummet. Many experts suspect China's real population is already below official figures, and that it might dip below 1 billion within a generation. Growth can't thrive when your workforce shrinks. Your factories lose overseas clients, and your property sector is a house of cards. Of course, Beijing will try to push back. It might cut more interest rates, attempt to prop up failing developers through state-owned banks, forcibly restrain or censor negative news, or even push grand new Belt and Road investments. But the illusions that fueled its extraordinary rise have eroded. The idea that property only goes up, that the West will always buy Chinese products, and that local governments can run infinite debt with no repercussions. So what now? Many foresee that by 2026, the Chinese economy will be caught in a perfect storm. Collapsing real estate prices, a wave of bankrupt local municipalities, capital fleeing from manufacturing, and millions of idle workers turning their frustration against the system. In short, Xi Jinping's government might be forced into draconian measures to keep control, widening crackdowns, restricting capital flows, imposing new propaganda campaigns, and each step fosters deeper distrust. It could spiral until the once invincible engine of the global economy slides into a severe crisis that no top-down directive can reverse. Will China truly fail to make it to 2026 in one piece? That might sound like hyperbole. Beijing has proven adept at containing disasters through sheer authoritarian might. But some brakes can't be taped over with censorship or financial firewalls. Housing markets that crash rarely bounce back soon. Export demand dried up may not return as quickly as it vanished. And the intangible trust that undergirds an economy, once lost, is extremely hard to rebuild. The population's discontent, the investor exodus, the unravelling real estate fiasco, the unstoppable wave of deflation, and the external trade hostility, stacked together, they appear to be the 5 horsemen of China's looming apocalypse. None of them alone might topple the giant, but combined they could cause a meltdown reminiscent of an empire's final days. Unless something drastic changes, the second largest economy on Earth might find itself stuck in a downward spiral. The constant illusions of unstoppable rise might finally shatter, leaving behind the question, how did it come to this? And why didn't anyone believe it could happen? Let me know what you think with a comment. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. And I'll see you soon.